Om Namasri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. So, we will continue from where we left. We discussed the seventh sutra, Sukhanushai Raga. Attachment is that which follows the experience of pleasure. So, whatever we like, whatever pleases us, that we have a tendency to get attached to that. So raga is a reaction of the self to that experience of pleasure. So it is not pleasure itself, it is a reaction to the experience of pleasure. So we eat something, we enjoy certain things, and the feeling that you get, the impulse which follows pleasure and then objectifies that feeling, is known as raga. And as I said, there are three parts to that. Raga comes as to a person in three forms, as we discussed earlier. That is Gardha, which is excessive desire which we have, a craving before experience. So Sukha Anushai Raga. So Raga is something we experience as Gardha even before the experience has taken place. So that excessive desire precedes. Gardha is, which is, it is also in Sanskrit known as Abhikanksha. Abhikanksha means an intense desire to enjoy, to experience. Because of our past memory, anything that we think will give us pleasure, we have an excessive desire to acquire it and enjoy it. Then the craving that comes after the experience, when the experience is lost, after we experience the pleasure, after we eat maybe a sweet, that experience is lost, we have already eaten it, that experience, that sweet experience is not there in the mouth, but still the craving that comes after experiencing it is known as trishna. So that is, trishna literally means thirst. So thirsting after knowledge, thirsting after many things, we thirst after food objects, sights, scenes, experience, smell. There are so many ways of experiencing Trishna. So that is the second stage. And third is, even while experiencing pleasure, the desire to have still more pleasure, not satisfied with what you are enjoying, you are already enjoying some kind of sukha, but you want more. That is known as lobha. Then we can discuss the eighth sutra. I'm just recapitulating it because these two are very important kleshas. Dukhanushai dvesha. Aversion is that it is dukhanushai dvesha. Dvesha means averse. We are aversion. So we have aversion to many things. So aversion is that which follows after the experience of sorrow. We experience some sorrow and we are averse. We do not want that thing to happen to us again. Say we take a bitter uh, pill. We are averse. We don't like it, but sometimes we are forced to take it. So the experience is there of bitterness, but we somehow don't want, or experience sorrow after that. Uh, we react in sorrow to that experience, and that is aversion. So this is similarly like raga. There is three types of dvesha also. Pratigha means after that experience you detest it. There is a desire to retaliate. Suppose somebody has given you a painful experience. You have a pratigha, you have a desire to retaliate to that. Then there is no desire to retaliate, but in your mind there is a lot of feeling, ill feeling towards that person or towards that object. It is known as manu or malice. It is malice, some kind of hatred, some kind of deep rooted hatred for a particular person or a thing or a experience. That is, and the last is vindictiveness. The third is vindictiveness, that is jighansa. Jighansa means you are vindictive. You want to do something, you just don't hate it, but you want to do something to uh, react and remove the source of that trouble. The trouble is there, the sorrow is there, and one who caused you sorrow, you want to retaliate. It's not exactly the desire to retaliate, it is actually doing some action which will show your vindictiveness, that joy of uh, troubling somebody. You don't gain anything, but by harming somebody, uh, you feel that I have vindicated. I mean, that vindictiveness is shown by saying, you hurt me, you gave me sorrow, so I have returned that sorrow to you in some other form, or maybe in the same way. So you hurt me and I hurt you. That vindictiveness is known as jigansha. And then, of course, in a general way, when we hate certain things, dvesha, it also means krodha, anger. So dvesha and krodha are almost similar. We get angry because we don't get pleasure. We seek pleasure, but when we don't get it, we get dukkha. We have a krodha towards that. So, pratiga, the desire to retaliate, manyu or malice towards that particular action or particular experience or particular person, jighansa, that sense of vindictiveness to take revenge, and also the attitude. It is not just a desire, but it is an action which you do to indicate that you did not like the sorrow and you have shown your vindictiveness. And finally is anger. Anger is a general feeling which you have. Now we come to the ninth sutra. This is the fifth klesha which we have to handle. Raga and dvesha, we all understand, attachment to the things that we like, and averse to detachment or aversion to the things that you don't like. So raga and dvesha. So these are the two main categories which we encounter every second of our life. Every second of our life we are encountering either raga or dvesha. And there is one third thing which we experience, which is also continuous in our consciousness, that is known as abhinivesha. So how is abhinivesha defined? It is known as swarasavahi. Swarasavahi, ever flowing momentum of its own samskaras. It is continuously flowing. The Swarasavahi, one which flows on its own. It does not require any pressure to some internal, like a fountain. It flows from within. There is a force within. And the fountain appears to be flowing naturally in a very effortless way. So that klesha, which is based on the ever-flowing momentum of its own samskaras, our own samskaras, which are good or bad, depending on whether they are good or bad, we react in a particular way. Vidusho api tatha arudo abhinivesha, which is deep-rooted in the minds of even learned people. So, raga dvesha, the learned people may somewhat, very wise and learned people may think, okay, let me not be so attached to the things that we like and the hatred to the things that we don't like. We can perhaps control raga and dvesha to some extent, though that is also difficult to control. It doesn't depend on the academic qualification or the achievements or the greatness one has achieved in our worldly life. That has nothing to do. Even a simple uneducated man can have more control over his raga and dvesha than an educated man. So here the sutra says that even in the minds of learned people who know what is right, what is wrong, even in their minds, there is a ever-flowing momentum of klesha, which is known as the will to live or clinging to life. There is not a single person who says, I want to die, unless, of course, one wants to commit suicide. But suicide also is a temporary feeling. Even the person who commits suicide doesn't want to do it. So that will to live, abhinivesha, that is the fear of death or clinging to life. That is a much better word. How we cling to life. It is, you cannot explain it. The most educated person, though he knows one person is going to die, but that clinging does not go, abhinivesha does not go. If that klesha goes, then things become very easy in our life. All our problems apparently will be solved. But it doesn't happen because that clinging to life doesn't seem to leave us under any circumstances. Under any circumstance, it does not seem to leave us. So it is Swarasavahi because of our old samskaras, which tell us I need to exist, I need to exist. The biological desires, the desires that has given us this body, Nobody wants to lose this body. So this deep rooted desire in the mind, it is known as abhinivesha, that will. So abhinivesha here normally means passionate attachment. That is the literal word. But passionate attachment to what? So here it means marana trasa. Marana trasa means fear of death. So that is how Vyasa, the commentator to this sutra, has explained that the fear manifests, this fear of marana trasa, or the fear of death, expresses or manifests itself in all beings, even in the newborn, as the constant feeling, ma na bhuvam, may I not cease to be, but may I always be. That desire to be, the desire to be, to exist, that feeling is known as will to live, or the desire, the instinct of self-preservation. So this existential fear of death, which everybody has, every creature, every human being, cannot arise. The reason why we Indians believe in rebirth and karma and rebirth is, how can that fear of death be in a person if he has not experienced before? Just as fear of pleasure, or the experience of pleasure gives us raga, experience of sorrow gives us, experience of dukkha give us dvesha, aversion. So we can explain that previous experience or the memory of previous experience is there. So Patanjali says, if that experience of death is not there, that we know that we have died so many times in our past, if we do not experience the pangs of death, some people have very painful death, some people have very quick death, but it's all the same painful. So he says it cannot be derived to pratyaksha, anumana or agama in this birth, because in this birth we have not experienced death. Maybe some people have experienced near death experience, they almost died and then somehow survived. Those are rare cases, but most of us fear death because we have experienced death many times in the past. So that a strong existential fear of death cannot arise unless we had already experienced the pangs of death. It cannot be derived through pratyaksha, anumana or agama. Means these are the three pramanas. Pratyaksha means you see death. Of course you see others' death. That gives you a feeling that death can be painful. But in our case, Vyasa says, it is our own experience. Somebody else's death will not bother us. On TV, we see so many soldiers dying. In our homes, we are very comfortable. We don't care if somebody else dies. It is only when we remember our own death experience of the past, that is when the existential fear of death comes. So Patanjali, Vyasa says, while commenting upon this sutra, he says, it must have been derived only from the experience of the death. That fear has to be derived only from the experience of death in the previous lives. So we have to remember this. Unlike raga and dvesha, there are some unique features about this abhinivesha, which is the fifth and the last but the most important klesha. So unlike raga and dvesha, which can be acquired in the present birth itself, how? Suppose you have never enjoyed some kind of new, say, mobile phones. In our previous birth, obviously there were no mobile phones, so we might not have enjoyed that mobile phone, using of that gadget. But this birth, in the present birth, we have experienced, and that is why when we lose it, when we don't get it, we feel dvesha, or we feel sorrow, because it is experience of this life. We have experienced the joy of television and many other things, and when these things are not available to us, we feel uncomfortable. So, but Patanjali says, unlike raga and dvesha, which can be based on previous life's experience also, but they can be based on this life's experience, whereas abhinivesha is produced by samskaras derived from previous lives. You can have an experience of raga and dvesha, certain things which you like, you have experienced it only in this life, not in the previous life. Still you will have, but how can you have the experience of death in this life? So he says, abhinivesha is derived only from previous life. Secondly, raga dosha have a definite cause. Every raga, every attachment of ours Say if you like to smoke, there is a cause. The cigarette is the cause of our desire, our attachment to the object, or our maybe desire to ride a car. So that object exists. So there is a cause, whereas in Abhinivesha, apparently there is no cause in the present life. In this life, there is no cause which can cause Abhinivesha, because we have not died. How can we compare an experience which we have never experienced before? If you have not died in this life, why should I fear death? If I have not seen a particular, if a tribal man who is living in the jungle, who has never seen telephone, if he comes, he will not be attached to the telephone because he doesn't know what it does. He has no attraction because he has no experience of pain or pleasure with that. Similarly, here he says, since Abhinivesha has no particular cause, so the commentator said this is a different klesha. It's a more complicated klesha because we do not know its source. If you know that you have a raga attachment to sweets, you can keep away from sweets. You can keep the sweets away from you. If you hate certain things, you can avoid those things. That is possible. But can you avoid death? Can you avoid that fear of death? No matter how many times a person is told, you don't worry, don't be afraid of death. It's very nice when we are young, we are brave and we say, okay, we will not be afraid of death. But when actually death comes, that fear comes. So also, raga and dvesha appear only at certain times, but abhinivesha is an ever-present feeling. Raga may not be there when the object is not there or you don't think about the object. Sometimes you are not even thinking of eating or drinking or smoking or doing any action which you like. Then you don't think about it. You are not thinking of eating all the time. Only when you are hungry, sometimes you feel, or you see some object, you feel. Whereas no matter how many times you see death around you, you don't feel that pain because you think, oh, somebody else has died, I have not died, and I don't have a risk right now. I feel I don't have. But that abhinivesha does not allow us to forget also. That is why the very peculiar klesha is this abhinivesha, because it is swarasavahi. It is one of the mysteries of life. That is why Nachiketa went all the way to Yama. He wanted to say, I want to know, as Yudhishthira put it in the Mahabharata, what can be a greater mystery than this? Every day in this world, living beings go to the abode of Yama, means they die. And yet others hope to have permanence of existence. How can it be? So Yudhishthira says, this is a great mystery. Raga and Dvesha, we understand, these are common experiences. But how does Abhinivesha come? How many times we have died so that we dread death in our life. So the stock of vasanas, they say Swarasavai means it's flowing on its own, like a flow of, like a fountain. So where does these samskaras come from? The stock of vasanas or samskaras born of painful experience of death in several past lives. So that proves that we have died many, many, many times. Just as if you have eaten sweets many times, there is more chance that you will crave for the sweets if you like it. Similarly, if you have avoided certain objects millions of times, then the moment that object or even the thought of the object comes, you hate it. You are averse to it. So you have dvesha for it. You have anger, krodha for it, dvesha for it. But here the commentators say that these samskaras that flow by its own essence, the experience of death which is there, inherited by us the moment we are born, we inherit the samskaras of death. Birth presupposes death. So the samskaras of death cannot simply vanish because they have happened hundreds and hundreds of times in our previous lives. So the fear of death cannot be produced by any objective experience. Because death you can see outside. You can see a horrible death. It may disturb you for some time, but it will not worry you. We go to cremation grounds, cremate somebody, and then after a few minutes or a few hours, you just forget unless that person is known to you. So Vyasa says Vidushaha, means even the most intellectual persons cannot get rid of this fear. So these old samskaras, death samskaras which are there, they give rise to this of abhinivesha. That has very difficult to control. That is why they say abhinivesha is so deeply rooted that even if one is highly qualified, Vachaspati says by learned is meant one who has acquired ordinary discrimination, not intense discrimination. If he has Viveka, then he will not bother about death. But those who have just got a thorough, who have done a thorough study of scriptures, have heard many YouTube videos and learned many Upanishads, books, but one who has not attained higher illumination, has not experienced, till one has experience of the deathlessness, the Sat Chit Ananda aspect, till then this, uh, even if one is learned, one knows for sure that death is something which we should not be afraid of, because we are eternal. No matter how many times we read the books, we read about immortality in the Upanishads and all, still we cannot get rid of that fear, because it is a something which is continuously flowing. So according to one of the commentators on this sutra, he says, though abhinivesha means fear of death, all other kinds of fear are also abhinivesha. So we have fear of losing money, fear of losing health. They are somehow or other connected with the fear of death. If you lose all your money, you feel, tomorrow what shall I eat? How shall I survive if I don't have enough money to eat? If I don't have enough money, how will I cure myself when I am sick? Suppose I want to buy some medicines. How can I do many things in life which are necessary for my survival if I don't have money? So fear of losing money is also abhinivesha. Fear of losing honor, fear of losing prestige, fear of losing name and fame, because they are directly or indirectly connected to the fear of death. Now, after stating the nature of kleshas, we will see the next two sutras we will discuss. Now it is important. We have spent enough time discussing how the five kleshas call all the psychological problems that we encounter in our life. We encounter a lot of psychological problems, and they all have their origin in these five kleshas. Now, having accepted, but root cause of all our problems is that fear of death. I know it is extremely difficult to say that I don't fear death. But Patanjali says this abhinivesha is the root fear. It gives rise to other fear. What will happen to my wealth? What will happen? Who will inherit that? Whether my children will get it? Whether my children will be happy? My grandsons? We have so many fears. The fears of losing the grandchild, or fear of losing the child. Though one does not worry so much of losing one's own life, he is worrying about so many other things. So this fear is like a big tree, and the branches are the smaller fears. So that is why Swami Vivekananda once said, if you get rid somehow by study of Shastras, by intense meditation, by getting rid of the fear of death, you will get rid of all other fears. So that Vairagya Shatakam which he wrote, he says everything is fraught with fear except renunciation. Renunciation alone can make you fearless. If you have nothing to lose, then what will be your fear? That is why some of the monks, they go to the extreme condition of depending totally on God. They say, I just want to make myself fearless. I'll just wander. Many of our old sadhus, even Vivekananda, when he decided to leave Calcutta and wander all over India, he had vowed that he will not touch money, he will not beg. Somehow food came to him. So that kind of fearlessness, it is difficult. Of course, that is an extreme case. It is only possible for somebody like Vivekananda who can just be so fearless. But he experienced that fearlessness. He says, the moment death comes to me, we all know how Swami Vivekananda died at the age of 39. Hardly he was less than 40. So once he went to Amarnath, his heart had enlarged. So he knew that he will not live long. But he told Nivedita once, they were going in the cold. There was a journey when they were going towards the Amarnath cave. It was a very, very tedious and strenuous journey. He was gasping because he already had a heart condition which was not detected. And Swami Vivekananda, when he climbed that lack of oxygen and other things, going to Amarnath is not a joke. Amarnath by foot. In those days, you had to go by foot almost the entire way. So his heart got permanently enlarged as a result. And then he had some experience of Shiva there in the cave, the ice cave. He had such a wonderful experience. That emotion also enlarged his heart. And when he came back, he was very sick. So, but still, when he was on the Amarnath Yatra, when he was sitting on a piece of rock, he took two stones in his hand. And then he says, when death comes to me, when death approaches me, I become as hard as these stones. So he just uh, showed the stone to Sister Nivedita, and two stones, he clashed the two stones. I mean, he hit the two stones with each other and see how hard it is. My heart has become so hard. I am not afraid of death. So whenever death comes nearer, he says, I am a very emotional person. But whenever death comes near, I become as hard as these stones. My heart becomes firm. That firmness, that is a result of getting rid of this klesha of abhinivesha. So as I told you, there are 5 kleshas: avidya, which is ignorance; asmita, that is ego; raga, that is attachment to the things that we like. We like many things in life, we are attached to that. We hate many things. Things that we don't like, we are averse to that. So aversion is there, liking is there. Raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, and fear of death. These 5 things, if you put it together, these 5 kleshas are the cause of all our psychological problems, all our fears, all our worries, our anxieties, our sorrows, our joys. Everything that we experience in this life can be classified into these 5. So Patanjali says, if you understand the root cause of your problem, you can be happy. How to eradicate these kleshas? Once you know the kleshas, what they are, that is why we took so many classes. We discussed these kleshas in great detail, because unless you know what those kleshas are, that you are having those kleshas in your own mind, they are part of your samskaras, then only you will be motivated or encouraged to remove them. So how to remove them? The eradication of these kleshas is the goal of Patanjali's yoga. Yoga means eradication of the kleshas. The next 2 sutras will discuss how to do that. So they have to be handled at 2 levels. Kleshas are not just gross kleshas. They can be subtle also. So the categories are discussed first. The te prati prasava heyaha sukshmaha. So 10th sutra says te prati prasava heyaha sukshma. The subtle form of kleshas are to be eradicated through counter evolution. Now we have evolved in a particular way. Our parents, our teachers, our peers, all our seniors and all the people around us, society has molded us. It has evolved us. For good or for bad, we do not know. Sometimes we have been evolved into a very noble person. Sometimes we have been evolved into a very miserable person because of the attachment we have to the things around us, the kleshas that are clinging to us, and they are making us miserable. So how we have evolved depends on how we have been, naturally, how our samskaras, the baggage of karma that we have brought with us, plus the effect of the surroundings on us. So they say our future is 50% nurture, 50% nature. Our nature is our samskaras. We have come with that. We inherit only some biological samskaras from our parents, biological characteristics. But our mental and many other characteristics are because of our past experiences, past lives experiences. So we have been born with certain samskaras, and that is our nature. So 50% of our life is our nature. But there is another 50% which influences, that is nurture. So somebody is nurturing us. The parents have nurtured us. Teachers have nurtured us. Our fellow beings, fellow colleagues have nurtured us. So depending on how they have nurtured us and what our nature was originally, our samskaras are formed. But these samskaras are present in subtle form. So to sukshmaha, the subtle kleshas have to be eradicated by counter evolution. Now what is this counter evolution? Prati prasava heyaha. Prati prasava heya is a very important uh, concept. We have to understand to how to remove. So how these samskaras can be removed? We saw in practice of Kriya Yoga, that is Karma Yoga, these samskaras we will become tanu karana. They will become tanu. Tanu means very mild. They are they are not uh, they are not harmless, but they will not cause great harm because they have been very weak. A weak desire to smoke, you will perhaps not go and smoke the cigarette. Though the cigarette is there before you, but that your samskara has become so tanu or so mild that you feel, no, I can control it, I'll not smoke. That tanu karana, but still there is a possibility that you will succumb to the desire. So, but once you reach the tanu state, you have to handle it in a different way. They become ready for prati prasava. Prati prasava heyaha sukshma. So we have to handle it. See that even the subtle samskaras don't disturb you. We do not know. They may come up anytime. This prati prasava can begin only when the samskaras have been burnt by the light of prajna. So that is what the commentators say. You have to burn it. What is that prajna? That prajna is the light which we derive from your spiritual practices. Why do people mad to do japa again and again? Holy Mother is to say, japat siddhi, japat siddhi. You do japa, you do namak, repetition of the holy name. What it does is, it creates some kind of illumination inside. It is known as prajna. Right now we don't have that prajna. It is there, but it is in a very faded way. We use some kind of awareness we have, but it is not sharp. Our buddhi is not sharp. It is the illumination or uh, the light of light of prajna, the power of fire of prajna is not burnt in our hearts. We are still enclosed or covered with darkness. So that is why every time you do japa, when every time you meditate on the Ishta, you are asked by any guru, all gurus will tell you the same thing. You have to imagine that there is a flame or there is some bright illumined God or your Ishta who is sitting in the recesses of your heart. And you meditate when you do the mantra or when you meditate on its form. Actually, what you are doing is you are burning the light of prajna within you. And only that and that alone can destroy our samskaras, reduce the effect of our samskaras. So when we tell the simple solution, when Sri Ramakrishna's disciple Yogananda, he said, I have so many problems. I have this, I am jealous, I have the feeling of lust coming and so many things. So he went to his guru and told him, can you give me something by which I can burn all these samskaras, they so that they don't arise in my mind. So he was very much worried. He knew these things are bad for spiritual life. So how to deal with all this anger and all this fear and all these emotions? So Sri Ramakrishna told him it is very easy, just repeat the name of God. So Yogananda got a little uh, dismayed by this answer. He said, people have been repeating the holy name all their lives. Nothing seems to be happening for them. Perhaps he doesn't know the solution. That's why Sri Ramakrishna is just telling me. This was in the initial stages. He had not yet accepted him as a guru. But he says, oh, he is not telling me because he perhaps doesn't know. So he went to some Hatha yogi and asked him to teach him some kriya, some exercise, some pranayama, so that he can burn his karma or burn his samskaras. He had read in the yoga, Yogananda had read in the yoga text that you have to burn. Prati prasava has to be done. The sukshma samskaras have to be burnt. And that is burnt only, it happens, the dagda bija means the burning of the seed. If a seed is burnt, no matter that how many How much water and the manure you give it to that burnt seed, it will not grow. But if the dry seed is put in the soil and you water it, someday it may sprout. So Dagda Bija, by the light of Prajna within, if that light burns, then you can destroy all the kleshas. All your fears will go. That is the easiest and the best way. So Holy Mother, when somebody asked her, why am having, my mind is so restless, why can't I? Then she says the easiest and the best way is to repeat the name of the Lord in silence. Now, this is a very powerful solution. But first of all, we don't have silence because our samskaras do not allow us. They make our mind distracted. Yes, by some effort, if we just manage to calm down our mind becomes calm. But that is not enough. You have reduced the intensity of the karma, but they have to be burnt. The seeds have to be burnt. For that, you have to do intense spiritual practices. So just staying calm, staying quiet, meditating and making the mind calm will not, it will just suppress. For the time being, you are very happy, you're not angry, you're not anxious, you're not fearful. Everything has gone when you are meditating. Even the person who is suffering from the worst disease or the worst affliction or the worst anxiety, worst fear, he also for some time, if he meditates, he will get some calm. But that is not enough. It has to be persistently done. Why? Because it creates that prajna within, that light of prajna, that fire of prajna has to completely burn the seeds, so that the seeds of the fear of death, the seeds of the fear of illness, the seeds of the fear of any other calamity that may come to us, all these seeds will be burnt. So according to Patanjali, he says we have to handle this subtle samskaras. So the yogi can reactivate by his, can deactivate, not activate. He can deactivate his samskara by burning them. Then only it, so that is why prati prasava, you have to do the counter evolution. There's a beautiful quotation which Swamiji expresses in one of his talks in London, which he gave on Jnana Yoga. He says a child is born with so much of innocence. He has that pristine purity within him. Unfortunately, he says society robs him of his purity or robs him of his innocence. And when we grow, when we finally decide to retire, that is what they say when you do vanaprastha. Vanaprastha means once the children have been educated and they are looking after themselves, then you don't have to bother about them. You just have to withdraw, a phased withdrawal, which is known as vanaprastha ashrama. First is brahmacharya, that is your study period. Then you get a job, grahastha ashrama, you have a family, you have children, then your children grow up. After that, you have no responsibility. You have to withdraw. That is known as vanaprastha ashrama. And such vanaprasthis, they try very hard to repeat the name of the Lord, do some spiritual practices so that they can come towards the state of sannyasa, which is the last ashrama. It is not just wearing this Gerua dress or something. It is a mental attitude that one has, where one is ready to face the consequences, face the ultimate fear of death. Only then, when you do that prati prasava, to eradicate through prati prasava, if you do, the sukshma samskaras will be burnt, and then you don't have any danger. That state is known as nirvana or kaivalya, but that is the last stage. But even if an illumined yogi dies without undergoing this prati prasava, he may become a adhikara purusha, he may become a great person, he may be born again, no doubt, but he will not be born as a helpless human being. He will continue his sadhana in some future life. So nothing is lost. That is why they say all other things you have to leave behind. The money that you earn, you have to leave behind. The house that you build, you have to leave. It will go to somebody, or the government will take it, or somebody, your children will inherit it. But anyway, you can't carry it with you. But the amount of sadhana that you have done, the amount of spiritual practices that one has done, that will help them to reduce the baggage of your karma, so that in the next birth you don't suffer the consequences of the pain, the kleshas that you suffered in this life. We all suffer from kleshas. Our kleshas make us helpless. Our raga makes us helpless. Our dvesha makes us helpless. And above all, our fears, that also makes us helpless. We can't get rid of our anxieties, big and small. There are bigger anxieties which are genuine, like death. There are smaller anxieties like losing of money, losing of name, losing a reputation. There are so many hundreds and hundreds of fears. Somebody robbing you. There are so many fears are there. So those fears, these are the kleshas. So that till you do pratiprasava, that means you counter that, as Swamiji said, the child is robbed of his innocence when it grows. So it has evolved. We say the child has evolved. Oh, he has become a intelligent person. But we don't know that he has become more complicated. So he has to regain his pristine purity. So old age offers us an opportunity. It says you practice, gradually withdraw, go back. And then he says through practice we can regain our childlike state. That is why in the Bible it is said, Jesus pointing to some small children, he told the old men, you have no entry to the kingdom of heaven. You cannot go there except like children. What he meant was not that you have to grow, uh, become childish and behave in a childish way, but you have to gain that innocence, that spiritual innocence which comes, that desirelessness, that reduction of tanha, desire, and the fears and all those things you have to gradually eliminate. Because a child, you see, it's born without any fear. It has firm faith that he's taken care of. We think we have to help ourselves. The child doesn't bother. So that intense fearlessness, that intense purity, it comes out of purity. So Swami Vivekananda said in London that so though society has evolved, that so-called evolution has made that young boy into a man, but he has in the process lost his innocence, which he has to regain by sadhana. And spirituality does exactly that. So yoga takes you back to your original state, which was pure, which was full of joy, which was full of lack of worries. So there is a beautiful song in Hindi. Of course, it's not a very spiritual song, but it is a old man is singing. It is a ghazal. It is there are so many modern ghazals which become very popular. So one of the ghazals, in that one of the ghazals, they say, "How I wish I could go back to my childhood. वो कागज की कश्ती, वो बारिश का पानी." Means we used to play with those paper boats when we were young. The old man now, when he is about to die, he says, "Oh, what a wonderful childhood we had. Please give me back. I will give everything that I have. Please return my childhood to me." So, though this song, it's a very popular Hindi ghazal. People, I mean, many singers have sung this song. So, uh, the song, the essence of the song is that the old man feels that somewhere when we grew up, we have evolved into a senior citizen or a old person, but in the process we have lost the joy of that childhood. Everybody feels, even though he is not spiritual. You don't have to practice yoga to understand that. When you see the children playing in the rain, in India there's a lot of rain, so the children, they find so much joy in making paper boats and floating them, that adults don't enjoy such things, but the children enjoy it. So this poet says, how I wish I could go back to those days. If I could go back to those days, how happy I would be, and I could play with like these children. So that counter evolution, or that re-evolution, as here it is said, pratiprasava. Prasava means to evolve. Pratiprasava means going back to the original state. So te pratiprasava heya sukshma. So this happens in a very subtle way. So we have to go to back to that stage. So how is that this author of this aphorism has not stated the fifth state of the klesha, that is Dagda Bija Avastha? He has not mentioned it directly, but the commentator said the Dagda Bija, the fifth state, has been that Tanukarana is mentioned. As we discussed the four states. The prasupta, that is hidden. The samskaras are hidden, its effects are not seen. That is one state. Then udara means the samskaras are clearly expressed. Your anger, your fear, you are expressing all the time. That is the udara state. But sometimes you suppress it. You have a lot of fear, but you don't express it. So that is known as prasupta. Or maybe in a grown up or in a child, there are many prasupta samskaras of his past which will make him an evil person. When he is young, he is very sweet. And suddenly, after if you meet him after 25 years, he said, how did he become like this? Because he grew up in a very nice surrounding, in a nice family, nice university. But how did he become evil? That is because of the samskara. So that is because of the prasupta samskara. So four types of samskaras. The tanu means very mild samskaras, which are not dangerous. You have desires, but they are manageable. You have anger, it is manageable. So they are known as tanu karana. But Dagda Bija is not classified here. But Patanjali has not mentioned that. But Vachaspati and the other commentators, they say that these samskaras, the eradication, when the time to eradicate these samskaras, which are causing havoc in your life, when that process starts, this idea of Dagda Bija is given, or Dagda Bija is necessary, because till then you can somehow manage with the Tanu kleshas. So the subtle form of kleshas are to be destroyed by counter evolution, prati prasava. We have evolved, we have to go back. That is the meaning of Jesus Christ saying that unless you become like these young little children, the kingdom of heaven is not open to you. You can only go to the kingdom of heaven. You cannot go to the kingdom of heaven except as children. So as these young children. So what he meant was that innocence you have to regain, that counter evolution has to take place. The destruction of the subtle form of kleshas is not within our capacity, but we have the capacity to do it with the grace of the Lord, which we can get. That is the idea behind all our sadhana. Sadhana is not, you can't say that I have done so much of japa and I should get the result. No, it all depends on how much samskara is there. But with the grace of the Lord, we go on repeating, and suddenly the light, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if a room is dark, say for 1000 years, nobody has opened that room. Suddenly somebody opens the room. Will that room become lighted slowly? Will it take 1000 years to become bright? No. It will suddenly, the light will go inside and everything inside can be seen. Or if you take a matchstick, he says, suddenly you can see the things around. The things which were dark will suddenly, it happens in an instant. Similarly, the destruction of the kleshas, though it takes a long time, but when the light of prajna that we burn, which we generate through our sadhana, through our japa, through our meditation, by constant meditation on the divine light within, the light illumines and removes all the darknesses of our heart, all the bad samskaras, all the fearful samskaras, everything is removed. So this eradication of kleshas are to be done. It has to be done through Kriya Yoga and by meditation. Kriya Yoga means it means doing karma, at the same time repeating of the pranava or Ishvara Pranidhana, surrendering to the Lord. So the surrendering to the Lord, Ishvara Pranidhanadva. There are three types of Kriya. So one is doing by practicing Yama and Niyama. They are also actually part of Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is a preliminary discipline. We purify our minds, and then finally, by the grace, by depending on God to illumine our hearts, suddenly His presence is illumined, the presence full of light, that will remove all our doubts, that will remove all our confusions, that will remove all our problems, however long they may be. We might have suffered our whole life, but that doesn't mean we have to continue to suffer. So the easiest and the best way, as Holy Mother said, is to do this japa continuously to produce an inner awakening, which will help us to uh, burn all our samskaras. But how to deal with the sthula kleshas? Now we will discuss that. The uh, in the next sutra we will see how this is as far as the subtle samskaras are concerned. But that prajna, that is the highest state, when everything is burnt out and you become totally liberated. You get kaivalya, or you get nirvana or moksha, mukti, all those things. They are the result of full illumination. But before that, what about the gross samskaras? Some people are no, leave alone subtle samskaras. They are not even able to handle their gross samskaras. Their greed, their lobha, anything that they see, they want to immediately acquire it. At, at least first you have to control that. Once you control the gross desires, at least if you have some degree of self-control, when the mind has some degree of self-control and one does not indiscriminately run after these kleshas, oh, I run after, oh, I like this thing, I want to acquire it. I will like cars, I want to get more cars. I like this food, I'll run to that place to eat it. I like these clothes, I'll get it. He doesn't even have the patience to wait, and that discrimination he does not have. That okay, let me just wait. Why am I so anxious to get all these things? Why that raga is not gone? So till you handle the gross samskaras first, when those things calm down, then the Patanjali's this sutra prati prasava, I mean the reverse counter evolution can take place. First, our say it is like a car going very fast. It is traveling very fast. Now you know you're going the wrong way, but to reverse it, you have to first slow down, then stop, and then put the reverse gear and go back. So Pratiprasava, according to Patanjali, says first stopping the car means get rid of your present samskaras. Don't add more samskaras. By indiscriminately giving the senses a full, I mean, to control you. Normally, it is our sense organs. Our eyes are controlling us. Our ears, we hear something, we run after it. Our tongue says, you eat this, we eat it. So, all our sense organs are dictating us what to do. So, once we have control over the gross senses and also the mind, the gross mind, then we can handle and find out what it means to handle these things even when the desire has not come. The subtle desires which are in a very, very subtle form. So Pratiprasava comes later. This Dagda Bija, burning of sanskaras, are not discussed because Patanjali says first make your kleshas tanu, make them a little less powerful, less impactful in your life. And once you get a relatively good degree of calmness, then you go deep within and then burn everything that is causing you trouble life after life. You have to be born so many times, again and again and again, to go experience this raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, fear. Then we die, that same memory comes back because we have died so many times in the past due to so many reasons. And that fear one has to get rid of. The only way is to destroy the klesha. The only way is to do that counter evolution. And how to do it? First, put a break, that is, stop adding further karma. Just decide that enough is enough. Now let me lead a contemplative life. Let me go inward, do some japa, do some spiritual practices. Because the external life, if it is not balanced with the internal life, if we don't teach our children that to stay calm, to look inward is as important as looking outward, we are doing a great disservice to that person, that child. It will grow up an excellent, a very intelligent person, but if he cannot handle his own senses, his own mind, he cannot control his own life himself, then it becomes very painful, and it all the fears and anxieties. So all our psychological problems, all the problems that we normally face is a result of this lack of inner control. So this Pratiprasava is a very important subject. We will discuss it in our next class. If there are some questions, you can ask. Otherwise, I will conclude now. Yes, there is one question. Swamiji, you said that Swami Vivekananda got rid of his fears by not taking money or begging during his India tour. No, that was one of the sadhana he did. He did not want to add more and more karma. That is the extreme case, as I said. But we have many material things, so many people and activities in our life. Then how can we start the journey of becoming fearless? We can start. We don't have to reach his level. He was totally fearless even as a child. He was born with that. I am not saying you have to give up everything, but at least we can put brakes. We can't be adding things. We can put a stop, or we say no more. Let us be happy with what we have. There has to be a line which we have to draw ourselves. How much is enough for me? When should I withdraw? When should I uh, be satisfied with what I have? So that limit is to be decided by everyone. Some people say, no, let me become a billionaire. And some people say, no, after 1 billion is not enough for me. There are so many multi-billionaires, let me become that. So that limit, how much you should give up, that is a totally individual choice. If Swamiji could give up many things during his Parivrajaka life, but still there are people who, Pavari Baba, who inspired Swami Vivekananda also. He hardly took any food. He would to stay in a cave, not meet anybody. That was an extreme. We can't do that. Nor we have to give up the things that we have. At least we can think whether there are these things with us. Do we really use it? Will we really need it? Are we not just gathering and collecting and accumulating things which we perhaps may not use? That limit, everybody has to fix himself. How much peace he wants, how much of this pratiprasava or this yoga he wants to attain, how much of spirituality he feels is necessary for him, that is one's own choice. So that's why they say this spirituality is an individual pursuit. It's not a congregational thing. You can't take 10 disciples and tell them all of you should do this, all of you should. No, for some people, they have many possessions. They need to slow it down. For many who don't have anything, maybe they can earn a little more. So the same thing cannot be told to everybody. Everybody has to take a call. How much counter evolution I have to do in my life so that I can find peace. If I'm already finding peace, that means I have more or less had control. Janaka, for example, he did not renounce. He had a whole kingdom. So you speak of Swami Vivekananda, but I can even tell Janaka had a whole kingdom, but he was not attached. There was no raga, no dvesha. If somebody, he says, if my whole empire is burned today, tomorrow, then I'll not be worried. He had that kind of attitude, even when we possessed all these things. So to possess or not to possess, to beg or to not to beg, or to that is the dharma of a monk. He had chosen that profession of parivrajaka when he was traveling through India, so he had to follow that. That's not necessary. There was Nag Mahashaya, who was a householder. He did not give up his house, but he was ready to serve. Anybody who came to his house, he used to serve them with so much of dedication, so much of care, concern. So he didn't just sell his house or give up his house, but he gave up his greed. The greed with which he was practicing his medicine, that he just reduced. Then he said, I'll not practice, I'll focus more. I have enough for my livelihood. I should not be unnecessarily running after money. So that is how Nag Mahashaya handled it, one of the householder devotees of Siram. So it varies from person to person. It's one's own calling. Yes. So there is another question now. Will bhakti not help reduce kleshas? Yes, bhakti helps. Bhakti means what? Repeating the holy name with devotion is bhakti. Nama japa, or repeating the holy name, can be karma yoga because you are doing some action. It can be bhakti yoga if you do it with devotion. It can be jnana yoga if you do with the knowledge that the Ishta or the Lord within is burning away all your samskaras. So it depends on how you consider it. Bhakti can do, definitely it can do. Bhakti is an independent sadhana. So we have to remember these things. And if we follow that, if we follow any yoga or a combination of these yogas and control our mind, the idea, basic idea is given by Raj Yoga. Raj Yoga gives us the structure, the method. Kriya Yoga will give you the process, how you do perform all these actions so that your life becomes full of joy, peace, and contentment. How much contentment you want, that is left to you. How much of things you really need, when should you put a break, when should you think that these things are enough, I should be happy and contented with whatever I get, with the effort that I put, all, and I at least have the freedom of spending my rest of my time thinking of the Lord, thinking of higher things. So I don't have to be mad after money, which will not leave me even 5 minutes every day to think of the Lord, to meditate on these things. So these things are important, because without that we will die. As Swamiji says, we don't want to die as people who are full of suffering. We don't to take our suffering to our next birth. Suffering may be there, it is a consequence of our past karma, but we can reduce its impact and see that when we are born next time, if we are born again, let us not take the baggage of the negative baggage, all the kachra, all the uh, things which we don't need. Let us just drop it. That is why Swami Ranganathanji sometimes used to say, in America they say, whenever you travel, if you want a happy travel, happy voyage, travel light. Don't have so much of luggage that that luggage makes you anxious. You don't enjoy your trip. Half your energy and anxiety is uh, depends on how much luggage you have, and then you want to carry it, and where do I keep it, how do I transport it. So you don't enjoy. That's why the advice given is, if you want to really go on a tour, enjoy the life, enjoy the place that you want to see, travel light, travel light. So that is a Ranganathanji used to say, we also have to travel light. We have to discard all our stupid desires, stupid fears, and many things which do not concern us. And we have to learn how to travel light so that we can undertake this life journey and be full of joy, of freedom, be of joy, full of. That is why Jesus said, those who are heavily laden. He knew many of our householders are heavily laden. He says, those who are heavily laden, unburden your goods, unburden yourself, and come to me. I will give you peace. But he insisted on that. If you go with a burden to the Lord and say, Lord, this is very heavy, the Lord will simply say, just drop it. Who asked you to carry this burden? Who asked you to increase your responsibilities? You increase your responsibilities and then cry that, oh, this is there, this problem is there in my life, and then the problems of my grandchildren and problems of the entire, all these things come because we have willingly accepted that baggage has been collected by us. So we are not traveling light. That makes our life difficult. So we have to travel light. So I'll conclude. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.